Am I the a-hole for telling my son I was disappointed after he and his wife lied about my grandson's birth date? My son, 23, and his wife just had a baby boy. Everyone is overjoyed and excited, but there have been some issues that has risen recently. When my daughter-in-law was pregnant, I suggested that I host a welcoming party for my grandson right after she got discharged from the hospital. I've made arrangements and even emptied a room for them to stay, but for some reason she was against it and said she'd rather spend the first few weeks at home with her newborn. Not only that, but she said no to the welcoming party. My husband and I talked to my son and he said we'll see. But just a couple days ago, we found out that my daughter-in-law had given birth 2 weeks ago, and no one knew about it. My nephew told me and I immediately called my son, and he confirmed it. He and his wife lied, then hid the date of birth from the family. I told him this was not acceptable, lying just because they didn't want a welcoming party and love and support being given from the family. I told him I was disappointed because 1, he ruined our welcoming for our grandbaby, and also I invited family members and they're all rightfully disappointed as well. He said it was his last resort after I kept pushing and made his wife uncomfortable, but that was not appreciated because we were just trying to celebrate the new family member in a proper manner. We had an argument, and he ended a call upon saying I ruined his joy for his newborn. My husband started texting him since he stopped replying to our phone calls, and I was threatening to block my nephew for tattling. But I think that my nephew was decent enough to inform the family. Otherwise, God knows how long my son and his wife were going to hide their son just to keep us at arm's length. We've always been kind and welcoming to my daughter-in-law and her family, so I don't know why she would do this and disrespect the family like that. On the other hand, some family members see it as a justified action because we insisted on a party. P.S. Some folks, I'd appreciate it if you leave my nephew, male 24, out of this conflict, because he's not part of it. Now for the top comments. Welcoming party is a nice way of saying exposing a newborn to all sorts of disease during a pandemic. You're the a-hole, always and forever. You are not entitled to put this child in danger. Edit. The people talking about the danger to and exhaustion of the mother are 1,000,000% right. I'm sorry for not including it. Honestly, where I'm from, you don't visit a baby until it is past 2 weeks, not to give it or the mother any disease regardless of the plague. Even 2 weeks is when you're really close, like a close cousin. For real. My mother-in-law forced a surprise welcoming party on us, but she at least had the basic decency to wait 2 weeks. It was still hell though. Edit. For those asking, no, a welcoming party is not actually a real thing. Everybody but her called it a baby shower. Only her family, who I had never met, was invited. I say hell because I was still bleeding heavily, had a tear in my labia, my breasts were excruciating basketballs, hadn't slept in 2 weeks and spent most of the time alone in a bedroom trying to figure out breastfeeding. You're the a-hole. It's not about you. Also, she was against it and said she'd rather spend the first few weeks at home with her newborn. Not only that, but she said no to the welcoming party. My husband and I talked to my son and he said we'll see. Mom said no. So you went behind her back to your son, which is disrespectful and insensitive to her wishes. And he clearly wasn't on board either. It sounds like they felt pressured into lying about it after you were so insistent on a party. Also again, he ruined our welcoming for our grandbaby. Wrong. You ruined the welcoming for him and his wife. You should feel horrible for that, and for putting them in that position to begin with. They obviously pushed it so hard that son and daughter-in-law were convinced they would just be there waiting at the house when they got home from the hospital. Opie needs to work on respecting boundaries if she ever wants to have a close relationship with her grandson, and will have to get used to a lot of disappointment if they continue their a-hole behavior. 100% and Opie, you're the a-hole. I'm a newly postpartum mom, and my mother-in-law boundaries stumped and my baby does to death. So much that we haven't asked her over in 4+ weeks and she gets very limited information. We also didn't tell anyone we were in the hospital the first day. It was glorious to concentrate on the task at hand without people constantly berating us. Babies don't belong to grandparents and you can't make demands/act entitled to someone else's child, or treat people however you want. Just because you want something or think it should be a certain way doesn't make it true. You'd be wise to love them the way they're asking to be loved and respect some boundaries. Next story is titled, Am I the a-hole for being hostile and rude to my sister's boyfriend over a joke he told my wife? My sister, 26, brought her new boyfriend, 30, over to our parents' house to meet him for the first time. My wife and I came as well. We met the dude. He seemed okay-ish at first, but he then started asking weird and personal questions. My wife had breast cancer and got a single mastectomy last year. She told the story to my sister's boyfriend and he was like, "Oh." Then he stared at my wife briefly, then playfully said, "Without even asking, I can pretty much tell which one got the blow." We were floored. My wife could barely keep a straight face, and she lied so she could leave the table because she was literally about to tear up. I just looked at the dude and said, "Are you serious?" And he said, "What? I was just joking, bro." I started asking him to explain the joke to me, and he just stared. I asked him again to explain it to me in details, but still got no answer. My sister asked me to stop because clearly he got uncomfortable, but I insisted he explain the joke to me because clearly my wife and I didn't get it. Things got awkward with him avoiding eye contact while I just stared at him the entire time. I still insisted. I'd asked him to explain the joke right there and then, but seconds later he said he needed to step outside to make a phone call. Turns out he got in his car and left. My sister had a meltdown screaming and berating me for how I treated her boyfriend, calling me hostile with anger issues to scare her boyfriend out of our parents' house. I told her he was overstepping and made my wife uncomfortable to the point of crying. She actually called my wife such a princess and said she is soft and cannot take some teasing. I had an argument with her and my parents intervened. I just took my wife and left. My dad called me later and said that he understood how hurt my wife felt. But my sister's boyfriend was visiting for the first time and I showed hostility and aggression instead of just ignoring him. He encouraged me to reach out to him and my sister later and talk it out, but I declined. Am I the a-hole? Edit. My sister and my wife don't have a history, but my sister tends to see the worst in people. When my wife announced her diagnosis, my sister actually thought she was faking because the family no longer brought up my wife's miscarriage months prior. I thought that was out of line and she apologized for it and we moved on. But my sister thinks that the only bad trait she sees in her boyfriend is a smoking habit. She says that otherwise he's perfect. Shaking my freaking head. Not stay home. Congratulations, you handled the situation perfectly. You simply asked the a-hole to explain himself. He couldn't. He doubled down. He chose not to apologize, which could have diffused the whole situation. What? I was just joking, bro. This is always code for I'm an a-hole, but I'm going to let myself off the hook. It's right up there with I'm not racist, but... And I'm just being brutally honest. 100% agreed. The just a joke bro crowd is never funny. Opie's insistence that he explained the joke is something I tend to do when confronted with that as well, and the reaction he got from the boyfriend is completely expected. Sister should be ashamed of both her taste in men and her attitude towards Opie's wife. Opie's family clearly enables her behavior since he got the whole "don't rock the boat" speech from dad. Opie's not a-hole, and frankly my hero for how he stood up for his wife. Not a-hole. What's so hostile about asking him to explain his stupid freaking joke? Some people think that anything less than fawning over their jokes is aggressive. I noticed it a lot when I started asking my family, "Oh, I don't understand a joke. Can you explain it to me?" Well, they'd make racist comments and say they were jokes. Nah, jokes are funny and you're not being funny, just a jerk. Me not laughing at them was considered rude, and asking them to explain how racism is hilarious was aggressive. But this is only called aggressive by the people who were the original a-holes, or those who enable a-holery. It's a perfect response and very helpful for weeding a-holes from your life. Well done. Not a-hole, and I honestly commend your restraint. Not sure I could have held back as much as you did in similar circumstances. Sometimes people don't have anger issues. They just have wholly valid anger. Normally, I do my best to keep calm and collected. It takes huge amounts of effort to get a reaction out of me. It's just how I am, and unfortunately people do try to test me oftentimes. Next story. Am I the a-hole for banning mother-in-law from being around my two underage kids after she said she should have my stepdaughter removed by CPS? I have a stepdaughter, Ava, 26, and two bio daughters, Claire, 16, and Emily, 14. I really did my best to bond with Ava, but she just wasn't into it. We did family therapy, individual therapy, but Ava was never okay with the idea of having step-parents. Mom was also remarried. She was a good kid and just kept to herself. Ava's getting married and mother-in-law's freaking out because Ava doesn't want a lot of post pictures. Ava really just wants pictures with a groom and to skip the family pictures. I didn't hear this conversation, but apparently Ava told mother-in-law that she would take pictures with her and father-in-law, but she had been dreading the big family pictures because she hates pretending she has two families when really she just didn't have one. My husband gently confronted Ava when mother-in-law told him what she said, and Ava said he didn't do anything wrong, but she just hates pretending we are a real family. That was hard on him, and he has been beating himself up over it. Mother-in-law won't let go of it, and has been crying about how she didn't know how bad it was for Ava, and she should have saved her. Mother-in-law recently burst into tears very dramatically in front of my husband, Claire, and Emily, and said she should have called CPS on us and gotten custody of Ava. We demanded to know what was CPS worthy, and she said she could have made something up, but if Ava was so unhappy, she should have been removed. I asked her if she would really lie to CPS, and she said yes, and that Ava probably would have been a good actress and could have convinced them. I was freaked out by this conversation. I decided if she really thinks that is okay, I don't want her around Claire and Emily. My husband is torn. The kids don't care either way, but mother-in-law says I'm dramatic and insane, and Ava told her dad that I can do whatever I want. But if mother-in-law can't be around them, the four of us can be the ones to not come to the wedding. I actually didn't mind her being around them at the wedding. It meant more she is banned from our house and we won't be going to any family events. My husband is now upset and feels I overreacted. Now for the comments. Not stay home. Mother-in-law is nuts and having a meltdown about somebody else's wedding. If she's threatening false CPS reports, she doesn't need to be anywhere near your family. Not to mention mother-in-law is delusional to think that her getting custody of Ava would have magically fixed all of the problems she perceived. Like if only she'd been the one to have custody, then Ava would want to take big family photos. She's throwing an overdramatic temper tantrum with very real and consequential threats, and I don't blame Opie for not wanting that anywhere near her family. Not stay home, but that is not a problem here. Husband being a freaking pushover is. What your mother-in-law said is completely inappropriate, and your husband should see it as what it was, a threat to your family. If he can't see that, then it is maybe worth reevaluating your relationship with him. Not stay home, but your husband should have A, recorded that crap, and B, gone no contact. If my mother-in-law threatened my kids like that and my spouse was that spineless, it would be insta-divorce and seeking a restraining order against the mother-in-law. Like I would get in the car and drive to a shark of a lawyer. Not stay home. You're being dramatic and insane? She's the one saying she should have lied to CPS, and acting like that would have been a reasonable thing to do. Threatening your daughter-in-law with CPS, even retroactively, is the nuclear bomb in family relationships like this. Also, I personally find it morally repugnant to use an agency that exists to protect children in legitimate situations of neglect and mistreatment to manipulate or enact revenge on someone else. That's pretty much fraud and theft of those resources. That is what she's casually suggesting was the right thing to do here, which is horrifying. I wouldn't want someone like that around my kids either. Now for the last story. Am I the a-hole for telling him his dog is absolutely destroying me and my kids' quality of life? My fiancé just got a dog about 2 years ago that has made me and my kids hate being home. That's coming from people who love dogs, including the multiple dog foster home over the years. This dog is untrainable. She has been in behavioral training and other basic training for a year and a half, and there has been zero change in her behavior at all. She whines constantly, nips at your face to get your attention and draws blood damn near every single time, rips food from your hands, bites your ears while you are trying to drive because she is pissed that you won't let her sit in your lap, gets in the garbage and will snarl at you if you reprimand her, etc. The only thing she's actually sticking with on the training is going to the bathroom outdoors. To say I'm done is an understatement. She's a small dog, so this is unnecessary, but she truly hurts people, nipping and digging constantly. 2 weeks ago, I completely freaking lost it after multiple conversations with my fiancé about the dog. He insisted on bringing her with us to the store one day because this dog is basically his pride and joy and cannot see any wrongdoings that she's actually doing. So he insists on bringing her, and while driving she jumped in my lap and gutted me. Complete loss of breath, dug the heck out of my stomach, etc. Not even 10 minutes later, she reaches up and rips my Slim Jim out of my mouth. I flipped out and told him he had until the end of the month to find her somewhere else to go, because I've had it and she's no longer welcome at my home. My fiancé keeps saying he will just try harder on training despite us bending backwards as it is, spending over $12,000 in training alone for it to do absolutely nothing. Wasting 3 days a week to go to training with her because it's important, but nope. So anyways, last night my daughter and I finished a project we had been working on for months. We wove a 12 by 12 blanket together made up of our old shirts and blankets. We hung it up in the garage to dry the glue around the seams. My fiancé brought the dog out and ended up hanging out in the garage with his buddy Chris. And like 15 minutes later, he comes inside apologizing because this animal destroyed at least 4 feet of this blanket we just finished. At this point, I told him I have never in my life hated an animal the way I hate this dog. And she has completely destroyed me and my kids' quality of life, and I'm done. Either he gets rid of the dog or he leaves with her. Those are the only 2 options at this point. He says I'm an a-hole for allowing a dog to ruin my life, and says if I would just calm down then I would see she isn't that bad. Am I the a-hole? Not the a-hole. Any dog who has been through $12,000 worth of training and still bites people is a dog that doesn't belong living with people who aren't absolute pet experts. I have to agree with this comment. I'm just stunned that it hasn't gotten better. I mean, 12,000 is a lot of training hours. Except training only works if it's reinforced at home, which I very much doubt the man in question is doing. This, training classes aren't magic. The dog isn't going to suddenly have an epiphany that, oh, this is what they want me to do at home. You have to continue what they're learning at home. Not stay home. The dog probably has potential, but your fiancé's refusal to see her behavior as problematic has made her a menace. Really, it's not the dog that's ruined your quality of life. It's the fiancé for his refusal to be consistent with training. Am I the a-hole for not paying for my niece's 17 female college anymore, since she's dating my son's 18 male bully? The bullying in question happened when my boy, Sean, was 13. And I know for some, it may seem like it was a long time ago and they were just kids. And I agree, if the bullying was just name-calling and pulling hair. But what my boy went through was downright cruel. It first started with names and slurs. Sean is gay. It then escalated from cyberbullying to physical. The worst incident was when the kids practically jumped my boy. I can't ever forget how messed up and bloody his face looked after that. I tried really hard to get those boys in trouble, but it was dismissed as kids playing around and getting too rough. My boy didn't even want to go to school for nearly 4 months, and during those months, he almost took his life. Luckily, my wife walked in right before he could do it. He's gotten all the mental help he needs and more, and he's doing much better. We moved, and he and my other kids had to practically start over. I'm telling all this just to paint the picture and show you it wasn't kids being kids. It was just little a-holes. I make more than enough, and I don't ever mind helping my family, you know. Well, I had promised my niece that I'd be paying for her college. Anyway, on to the problem. We went back to our hometown like always, celebrating the 4th of July and all of that. When we were prepping, my niece ended up bringing someone I never expected to see again. That little son of a B. Derek, one of the kids who did the bullying. I recognized him immediately, and I know he did too since he didn't stay long before leaving. After he left, I turned to my niece and asked her what the heck she was thinking, bringing him knowing what he did to her cousin. She acted like it wasn't a big deal and said that he had changed and the whole thing happened years ago. How nonchalant she was about the whole thing ticked me off. My sister tried telling her she shouldn't have brought him over, and she responded by saying she had a right to bring her boyfriend to meet the family. Then she said that if Sean wasn't over what happened even now, it wasn't her boyfriend's fault. My wife called her a heartless bee before leaving, and my kids followed her. I stayed back and told her that if her boyfriend had changed so much, then I guess he could pay for her education because I'm not supporting her anymore. Then I left. Me and my family are just staying at a nice hotel right now and are planning to go to an amusement park. I've been getting calls and messages from my sister, brother-in-law, and others who were present telling me I'm overreacting and that I shouldn't take away my niece's education. They've all sided with the bully, saying the little turd has changed a lot and is now a good kid, and I can't hold what he did as a troubled kid over him forever. Am I the a-hole? Now for the top comments. Not the a-hole. My son, 17, was bullied quite badly last year. He has autism and a language disorder, and he's a pretty quiet and shy kid, but kids with autism are often targeted. I didn't know initially since he didn't want to tell me, but when he was literally crying and begging to stay home, I pressed for answers. I couldn't even remember the last time he cried. He ended up doing the virtual academy option for the year. I can't imagine, as a parent, the feeling of seeing your kid bloody and injured. No way would I just get over what happened either. Your niece seems pretty heartless. She isn't entitled to a paid education. I'm so sorry to you and your son. I hope he's doing better now. Has the little turd ever apologized to Sean? Tried to make amends? Nope. If he had truly changed, he would have done that by now. Tell your family members defending him that. And if he does try to apologize after this, you'll know it's only because your niece put him up to it to get her free college ride back. I wouldn't pay a penny for a niece that was this heartless to my kid. You're not holding a grudge. You're protecting your kid. Exactly this. That little turd could have apologized as soon as he recognized OP and OP's son. He didn't. He left, knowing he was wrong. The niece could have not brought him over, knowing it would be traumatic for OP's son. She didn't. She could have warned her cousin and OP. She didn't. She could have apologized after seeing how upsetting it was. She didn't. Obviously, she has autonomy to bring over her boyfriend, but by bringing over that boyfriend, she put her needs over the comfort and feelings of her cousin and uncle. That was a choice. She has zero right to be upset that OP is now putting his and his son's feelings over her needs and comfort. She is free to make her choices, but that doesn't make her free from repercussions and consequences. OP, tell anyone questioning your decision exactly that. If they think it's unfair, they are welcome to contribute to her college fund or tell her to sincerely apologize. Same goes for the little turd. Shouldn't be a problem. He has changed so much. Not the a-hole. Next story. Am I the a-hole for kicking my sister-in-law out and banning her from my home until she apologizes? I, 37 female, have 4 kids. 14 female, 10 and 8 males, and 5 female, with my husband, 35. My eldest, Eliza, is very shy and keeps to herself at big gatherings. She has never been a fan of huge gatherings, so she'll find a spot on the couch and stay there reading her book. People do go up to her and ask her about her book or school, etc., and she will reply. She'll answer their questions, and she's never rude to anyone. She's a good kid, and both sides of the family love her and understand why she likes her space. It has never been a problem until now. Yesterday, my husband invited his mom, dad, and sister, along with her husband and their twins, 13 females, and a few work buddies and their partners to join us for dinner. Eliza wasn't having a good day and asked if she could just stay in her room because today just wasn't a good day for her. Both my husband and I agreed that she could stay in her room that night, but if she needed to talk, she should just come to us. She thanked us before going up to her room. When everyone arrived, my husband was still cooking dinner. So I sat around the table with everyone, just catching up on what's been going on this week. My sister-in-law asked where Eliza was, and I told her that she was in her room because today hadn't been a good day for her. Sister-in-law felt bad and decided to go check on her. I told her that she shouldn't do that and to just let Eliza be for now, and when she's ready, she'll come down on her own. Sister-in-law rolled her eyes and went upstairs anyway. I quickly followed behind her because I really didn't want her bothering my child when she's upset. That's not fair to Eliza. When I caught up, I saw her scolding my daughter and calling her rude for not being downstairs with the rest of us. Before she could continue, I told her she was crossing the line and to leave Eliza alone. I explained that Eliza wasn't having a good day and to just let her be. She isn't being rude by wanting to be alone, and if an adult can take some time to themselves, then my daughter can do the same. Sister-in-law snapped at me and said I was coddling her too much and that she's going to be a failure when she's an adult because we babied her instead of preparing her for the struggles of the real world. I lost my temper and screamed at her to get out of my house if she couldn't respect that my daughter wants to be alone. I continued by telling her that she was extremely disrespectful to Eliza and that until she apologizes, she is no longer allowed in my house. Sister-in-law called me a B in front of my daughter and called me a horrible mom for coddling my daughter instead of forcing her to suck it up and spend time with the family. She continued by saying that Eliza needs to grow up because this shy thing was becoming unbearable. Before I could scream again, my husband came up asking what happened. My sister-in-law gave her side and told my husband that I wasn't being a good mom by coddling Eliza so much. My husband came to my defense and said that I did nothing wrong and that our daughter is allowed to take time for herself. I told him that I didn't want sister-in-law here until she apologizes to Eliza. He agreed with me, which made my sister-in-law absolutely mad, and she screamed at both of us before leaving with her husband and kids. I comforted my daughter and told her that taking space and wanting to be by herself wasn't wrong and that what her aunt said about her wasn't true. I reassured her that she was a good kid, and she hugged both my husband and me before going back to her room. My husband told me that I was a great mother and to ignore his sister because she has no idea what she's talking about when it comes to me. I've been getting a few calls and texts from other family members telling me I was wrong for reacting the way I did and that I took it too far when I kicked sister-in-law out. So I'm wondering, was I wrong in banning her until she apologizes to my daughter? Not the a-hole. You protected and defended your child. You should be proud of yourself and your husband for putting Eliza and each other first. Not the a-hole. In fact, you and your husband are rock star level parents. Sister-in-law should learn not to cross Mama Bear and not to be such a mean a-hole, especially to a 14-year-old. Not the a-hole. I was a lot like your daughter as a child. I wish I had a mother like you growing up. Yes, you don't want to coddle your child, but there is absolutely no excuse for an aunt going upstairs and yelling at her teenage niece for being rude in her own house. Absolutely stand your ground until she apologizes to your daughter. It doesn't matter if someone is different. Everyone deserves respect. And you're teaching this lesson to your kids by not letting her back until she does. The sister-in-law is nothing but a bully and should not only apologize to her niece, but to OP for being a rude guest and calling her a B. Next story. Am I the a-hole for telling my brother-in-law to stop picking on my kids, or he's not coming on vacation? I have 3 kids. Rob, 16 male, Lisa, 14 female, and Anne, 9 female. Lisa is autistic, and her special interest is Taylor Swift. Rob and Anne go along with it and indulge her. They're good kids who care about and support each other. And yes, Rob and Anne get attention and support for their interests too. My brother-in-law Hector's entire personality is trying to rile people. You know, the whole it's just a joke bro type. Super childish, but whatever. He's family. Except my husband is out of the country, so I guess Hector thinks he gets to do whatever he wants. A few weeks ago, he started needling Lisa by making fun of Taylor Swift, using lots of childish name-calling, intentionally using the wrong term for fans, and stuff like that. Just really immature kid stuff. Lisa knows that not everyone likes Taylor Swift. One of her best friends hates her. She's not unable to hear different opinions. She has her own opinions that I'm sure she'd love to share with you all if you had 4 hours to spare. He would say, well, Swiffers did XYZ. And she would say, Uncle Hector, it's Swifties. And he would say it again to needle her. Rob was in the room. I was not. Rob said to him, why do you keep using the wrong word? She told you the right one. Hector said he could say whatever he wants and to cry about it. Rob said, it just seems like you're going out of your way to upset Lisa. Then Rob asked Lisa to finish what she was talking about and told her to ignore Hector. That's when I came into the room, and Hector waved at the kids and said, Roberta's getting real mad that someone's joking about Mother. I wasn't in the room, so I didn't hear the comment about me, and Rob said I wouldn't get it. Before I could say anything, Rob said, Bro, did you really just call me a girl's name? Are you 12? I put my hands up and said, Okay, enough. Hector, stop. He said I'm raising soft kids who can't take a joke. I said he's being so effing rude, and that he wouldn't be acting like this if my husband were home. I told him that if he wants to still go with us to Colorado this summer like we were planning, he has to stop now or he's not coming. This set him off, and he said I had no right to do that. Yes, I do, and that I'm being a controlling yak over Taylor Swift. I said, no, ignore Taylor Swift. This is about you being mean to your niece because her dad isn't home. He said, F you, and good luck next time you have a problem. You're on your own. He took his Costco chicken and left. I swear he must have immediately gone running to my mother-in-law because she called me to ask what really happened and sighed a lot. I asked her if I was overreacting, and she said she just hopes we can work it out because that trip was all he had to look forward to since he was laid off from work. I hate causing drama in the family, so am I the a-hole? Am I out of line? Not the a-hole. You should be proud of your son for standing up for his sister. The brother-in-law does not deserve to go for being a nasty piece of work. Rob is a very good son and has always been protective of his sisters. And I'm very grateful for that because I didn't have the same relationship with my brother, sadly. Not the a-hole. You protected your kids. Your son seems wise beyond his years and brave to stand up to a family member like that. This is a perfectly reasonable, natural consequence for the uncle to face. He has to be agreeable and kind to be invited on family vacations, lol. That's not a huge stretch. I hope he can come around. I'm glad your mother-in-law didn't completely take his side, but it sounds like she's a huge enabler. There's a lot of irony in saying, I hope you can work it out because that trip was all he had to look forward to since being laid off from work. Well, if he cared about the trip, maybe he should be grateful and respectful to his family so as not to put it at risk. Maybe he's a grown freaking man and shouldn't be coddled with vacations, just so he has something to look forward to. Make sure your husband is on board. You know brother-in-law will go to him next and will attack your parenting and your logic and your values. You have your head on straight. Perhaps with your husband present, you can have an adult conversation with your brother-in-law about the role of jokes with your kids and that his jokes lean heavily into negativity, from mocking interests to deliberately using the wrong names just to mess with them. Classic playground stuff. And if he wants a role in the family, he needs to do better. Last story. Am I the a-hole for agreeing to take custody of my siblings from their dad when he asked me if I'd raise them since I'm fine taking his wife's role? My mom died 4 years ago. I, 20 female, was 16 at the time. My younger siblings were 7, 8, and 10. We have different dads, and mine was never in my life, so I went to live with our shared grandparents, and they went to live with their dad and his wife. My siblings and I still saw each other and called and texted daily. Their dad wasn't that cool with it, and did try to interfere, but our grandparents said they would get the courts involved to allow access if needed. My siblings come to me for stuff, my sisters for girl stuff, and my brother just in general. Honestly, I did a lot of the emotional mom stuff, like talking about periods with my sisters and even sex, contraception, and consent. They both came to me when their period started, and I gave them products and helped them find what worked. When they're sick, I'm the first person they tell. I'll wake up to a text or get one while I'm getting ready, and they'll want to see me. They ask my advice about extracurriculars, school, and even homework. Their dad hates it because he and his wife wanted her to fill the mother figure role. He told me I needed to step back and let her do it. I told him they didn't need to go to her when they had me and Grandma. He said his wife deserved a shot at helping them through things. And when I step in every time, they don't even look to her. We argued, and I never saw that as my problem. She's just his wife after all, and Mom can't be replaced. But he thought she could be. He even said they'd never agree to being adopted by his wife if she couldn't take over more of a motherly role. I asked him why he'd think I'd want that, and I told him I knew he'd try to use that to cut the rest of us out of their lives. He didn't deny it. He actually said nobody is irreplaceable, and if I loved my siblings, I'd want them to have a new mom. My siblings have complained endlessly to me and to different family members about their dad's wife, and how she and their dad try to act like she's their new mom, how they don't like that, or how they're not allowed to talk about Mom or anything that reminds them they already have one. Apparently, their dad and his wife have a special hatred for me, and it's not hidden in their house. Their dad confronted me on all this stuff again, and asked if I wasn't going to let his wife be their new mom. Was I going to take over raising them? I said yes, I'd take custody of them, and my grandparents and I would be happy to have them with us. I told him they are my family after all, and I would do everything I could to give them a good life. He didn't expect my answer and got more irritated. He asked if I was serious, and I said yeah. I told him I had even looked into it, just in case any of them asked me to fight for them, and that I had made sure I'd be secure enough to make it work. He went off on me, and I just walked away because I didn't see why I needed to let him scream in my face. He said I had some nerve, and that I was supposed to realize the best place for them is with two parents, which he and his wife could give them. Then he threatened to stop all contact between us. I told him the threat my grandparents made still stood, and if he ever tried that, his kids would never forgive him, and he'd lose them forever. That ticked him off even more. I'm ignoring all contact from him right now because he just wants to scream at me via text about how wrong it was to say I'd take custody. Am I the a-hole for saying that? Now for the comments. Not the a-hole. My guy really thought he was hitting you with a gotcha moment, and instead, you hit him with a full-on legal battle plan. The fact that he got even more mad when you said you'd take custody just proves that this was never about what's best for your siblings. It's about his ego and forcing his wife into a role they don't want her in. Honestly, you're stepping up in a way that a lot of people wouldn't, and your siblings clearly see you as their safe space. He can stay mad, but the reality is, love isn't something you can force, and respect is earned, not demanded. If he actually cared about their happiness, he'd listen instead of throwing tantrums. He's mad because he realizes she's right, and his own children don't want what he's forcing on them. She is not the problem, he is. He will still be mad when the kids are grown and leave the house as soon as they can and stop talking to him and the wife. He says he doesn't understand why they won't talk to him, but only because he refuses to acknowledge he did wrong. Not the a-hole. It's really upsetting that he's so threatened by your bond with your siblings and that he almost wants to erase their mom's existence. You're an amazing big sister and your siblings are lucky to have you. I do everything to be there for them. I love them and I know Mom would want us to stay as close as ever. I love how he's trying to guilt you to do what's best for the kids while actively going against their best interest and for no apparent reason, lol. Why is this man so insecure about this? Was he maybe a deadbeat before and now wants to please his new wife? Pathetic, prioritizing his wife over his children. Not a deadbeat, but he was a crappy guy overall.